What is up, guys? Today we're back here with my friend Corey Schnupp, and we're going to be nerding out over differences between American and German spec Corrados.
Hey, what's up, everyone? So we're going to discuss some of the differences that we discovered between both these cars. This isn't going to be necessarily like a tell-all of all the differences, so if you guys have any more to add, feel free to add in the comments, because we're curious to know anything that we missed.
But enjoy the video. There's actually a lot more differences than I even realized.
All right, so since my car is a base model German import, one thing that stands out from not only the US spec cars but also the German market is that this car came factory with no air conditioning. Also, it's got a non-tilt steering column, and then it also has crank windows. So like I said, those are three things that kind of set it apart from not only the US market but even from some of the German market, because some of those cars did come equipped with those three things. Base models is where it's at, I guess. And then you can also see in place of where the power window switch used to be on the door card, it just has a dummy plate there instead. Okay, so now from the driver's position, one of the first things we're going to discuss is the actual gauge cluster. This car is equipped with kilometers per hour, which makes sense since it was registered in Germany. But it also, one other difference is that it also shows after 12 noon, our clusters here go to 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. The European spec models go in military time and actually go 1300, 1400, 1500. You can also see that the steering wheel is obviously different than the US market. And another thing that we get that's different here is our seatbelt setup. So anyone who's got a US spec car knows that you have the retracting seatbelt system. Obviously the European spec don't have that. And one thing I noticed, I don't know if this is on all the Corrado chassis or just the ones that were intended to be built without the manual or without the power seatbelts, is that the lower tab for the lower support on the seatbelt, there's actually a tab welded onto the chassis where that hooks in place. But I just wanted to point that out in case anyone who's unsure if you're going to buy the Eurospec seatbelts, there is an actual spot on there. You're gonna have to take the rear door card off and just lift up the cushion for the rear seat and you'll find it. All right, so most of you already know the US spec interiors came with either a red dot, blue dot, gray dot, or either black leather or tan leather. So our options here were kind of limited to those offerings. The European spec offered quite a bit different fabric options. What's in my car is just one of them. I'm pretty sure it's referred to as the confetti pattern, but they not only did different base models with different interior fabric, but they also did Recaro upgrades as well as a factory option with varying different fabrics that we never saw here in the States. So another thing that sets apart the interior from US spec market is the lower partial tray. If any of you guys ever had a Mark II in the US, you'll remember that there's a little storage area underneath the dash for you to put stuff, and on the Euro spec Corrados, that's something they incorporated. So yeah, while I have the door open, you can see also here that this seal that you'd normally find on the US spec models is non-existent. I'm not sure on what areas that wasn't included on, but I've seen a couple listings on Bring a Trailer where it was a Japanese market car and it was also missing the molding there. So I'm not sure, like I said, where they drew the line or what countries required what to be safe in their country or however they treat all that stuff, you know. Okay, so another difference between the US spec and the European spec market is obviously the front and rear bumpers. Front bumper has a recess for the Euro plate, unlike Matt's car over here is just completely smooth. There also is a side marker incorporated in the US spec bumper, which on the Euro bumper, it's just smooth and there's nothing there. And as most of you already know, the indicator instead is mounted on the fender. This is kind of a bad example of a Euro spec car to show you because the previous owner already deleted and smoothed out the side marker on this particular car. But for anyone who's interested, it does normally go right here. Also, another difference with the front bumper is there's an actual welded block mounted right onto the frame rail of the Euro Spec market that's got a tow hook incorporated onto it. So when you're towing the car, it's actually attached directly to the car. Unlike the US Spec market, anyone who's had their bumper off knows that the tow hooks are incorporated into the rebar of the front bumper. So it's slightly different. Again, it was probably just different specs and their safety requirements at the time. So another obvious difference between the US Spec and the European Spec market is the actual headlights, or the E-codes, whatever you want to call them. They came factory with motors to do the adjustments of the actual headlight, versus on the US Spec ones you have just a knob to crank. So that's tied in with a switch on the dash where you can actually manually control it while you're in the car, versus having to get in and out of the car to make your adjustments. Another thing that's going on while we're in the car is the ID tag that you find in the passenger front apron. Is what I've noticed on this car, it actually writes out in text Twilight Violet. Unlike my other car, it just shows the paint code. This car also has is I4-2.0, so I'm assuming that stands for inline 4 2.0 liter, which was originally the motor that was in this car. That's just a guess, I'm not sure. Hopefully someone can verify that. So going back to what, like we discussed earlier about this car not having any air conditioning, one thing that's going to be strange for you guys to see is when you look at the firewall in this car, there's no ever sign that there was AC in this car. It's just completely sheet metal, like it would have been from the factory. So that's kind of cool. Another thing that we have is all our US Spec cars have their own ID tag on the dashboard. The European Spec, or at least the German Spec, don't have any ID other than what's stamped on the actual rain tray. And in addition to that, they put a tag on the rain tray as well, and that number matches the one that's stamped in the rain tray itself. So based on the research that I've done, depending on what market or what country it was going to, like for example the US market, there's certain numbers in that VIN that represent various things about the car, and I'm drawing a blank on what they are, but some of them are like the passive restraint system, just different things to identify what that car is actually came with factory. And in Germany, like I said, they stamped the rain tray, and then the ID tag on it is your actual VIN number. They didn't change or do any variations to that original number. Okay, so now moving on to the rear bumper. Again, this is kind of a bad example. This bumper has been replaced with an aftermarket unit, but typically on the European markets, there's going to be a cutout here on the passenger side section, where if you have a US Spec car, you'll notice there's just like a rectangular kind of impression there where it looks like you could pry it out, but there's really nothing behind it. Or on the European Spec market, they actually left that opening open. So another thing that's going on in the back end, which is a bad example of this hatch, is a US Spec hatch. So it does have the third brake light. Typically, the European Spec market does not incorporate the third brake light. When this car goes through its bodywork phase next year, we're gonna incorporate that and make it look like it's a true European Spec hatch. And then the only other thing going on in the back is the European Spec markets came factory with the rear fog. A lot of guys will, in place of that, put a third brake light spot on their with their rear end. So either way, the spot's there for a bulb. It's just that you need to wire it in. Unless you have a European market car, then the bulb and the wiring is there for the rear fog instead. And one more thing I missed about the rear end of the car is the license plate tub. Obviously, the US Spec and the European Spec look quite different. So I just wanted to point that out just so we didn't miss anything.
Alrighty guys, well, huge shout out to Corey for coming out and sharing his knowledge with us, because there was a lot of stuff there I would have never known. So really cool to see the differences there. And like he said, this car is actually going to be getting repainted by Slaw next year. So a lot of changes that aren't OEM will be. So we'll be making more videos with the car in the future. So hit that thumbs up button if you guys enjoyed the video. And like he said earlier, if there's anything there that we missed, just feel free to drop it down below because we're nerds and we want to know all the differences. So thank you guys so much for watching. Take care. Peace.